good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another week of the Global Café. So my name is Kara Cruz, and today I'm very excited to be introducing you all to the wonderful Berit Rafoss on the topic of intergenerational games and age-friendly environments. So thank you very much for joining us today. So Berit has championed age-friendly development for the last 10 years. She developed Oslo as an age-friendly city, established a working group on urban aging in the European network of cities called Eurocities, and had a secondment at the WHO Geneva office focusing on age-friendly development. She has established a network of age-friendly cities and communities within Norway, first with the Norwegian Association of Local and Regional Authorities, which was then transferred to the Center for an Age-Friendly Norway, where Berit is now project manager. This is a result of a national quality reform for older people. The center is committed to creating an age-friendly society, focusing on the involvement of older people, cross-sectoral collaboration, and sustainable development. The center has recently also become an affiliate of the WHO Global Network for Age-Friendly Cities and Communities, of which the IFA is also an affiliate member. So thank you very much for joining us today, Berit.
Thank you so much for having me.
To start us off, could you share how you became interested in creating and supporting age-friendly environments? Have you always wanted to have a goal of working with older people?
Well, my age-friendly journey started really when I worked for the city of Oslo about 10 years ago. And just as I had started working in the Department for Health, Care and Older People, I was given the responsibility for Oslo applying to become a member of the global network. And I really liked the approach instantly, this holistic, cross-sectorial approach to working with an aging population. I really liked it. And so I was fortunate enough then to develop Oslo as an age-friendly city and then work with it abroad and nationally ever since. And 10 years on, I still really believe in this way of working, putting older people in the center of the development, getting those local insights and local solutions and working across sectors.
Thank you. And we'll be speaking a little bit more about that experience of co-creation with older people. But first, I wanted to know, what does it currently look like to be an older person aging in Norway? And what do you aspire for aging to look like in the future?
Well, I think being an older person in Norway today, in general, is good. I think the level of services is relatively good, accessibility to housing and activity is good. But we're also a bit stuck in traditional ways of thinking. There's still a lot of focus on nursing homes as the sort of solution for when you cannot live at home any longer. Of course, this has traditional and historical background. We wanted women to join the workforce, and we have over 85% of women working. And so nursing homes really became the integral part of taking care of older people. But as we're getting older, living longer, we need to be more innovative and think differently in terms of how we develop housing options. So I think that's the way of the future, developing different housing options, maybe gaining by sharing options, which we're seeing some examples of. You know, you have maybe smaller units to live in, but you share more of the communal spaces. You share the costs, you share the different tasks and activities as well. So I'd like to see some more innovative housing, and I'd like to see also some more urban planning geared towards older people. And I think another issue in Norway as well, if you think about Norway as this long stretched countries, we have a lot of rural areas. And there's been a very strong sort of political focus, I guess, on you should be able to live anywhere in Norway, out in the islands or up in the mountains, which is great when finances are good and we can deliver the services everywhere. But our economy will change as well. So I think in the future, we need to think about maybe centralizing a bit more, thinking about where we live and can you have activities and service delivered to you where you are living. So I think I'd like to see us maybe centralizing communities, housing and transport and activities slightly more so that it becomes more accessible and sustainable.
Yeah, it's a fine line, that balance between both sustainable and accessible and meeting the needs of what people, how they want to age. So the Center for Age Age-Friendly Norway, I believe, was the kind of supported the development of the handbook for age-friendly communities. So you led the authorship of, and it's a fantastic resource for anyone interested in age-friendly environments. And within the handbook, there's this really beautiful quote, and it's very simple, but it's from an older person in Oslo who says, "I have no desire to become younger, but I very much want to get older." So I think that is just, first of all, really powerful. But as you shared, despite Norway's significant resources, it also has significant challenges in meeting the needs of older persons and supporting them to grow older in a dignified manner, the way that they want to grow older. So, what age-friendly domain did you begin with when you were first starting the age-friendly journey within while working for the city of Oslo? So maybe if you want to kind of back up and describe the different domains and why it is you chose the one you did to start off with.
Well, it was interesting because when the sort of work with Age Friendly Oslo started, we needed to start with co-creation with older people. We needed to get good insight, okay, talking to people, interviewing, surveys, doing walkability tests around the city, having conferences and meetings, getting all the insight into the different areas, be that outdoor areas, transport, housing, activities, communication, all these different areas we got insight on. And it was interesting because at every meeting and at every instance, it was transport, transport, transport. And it did surprise us a little bit because a big city like Oslo, we have the metro, we have trams, we have buses. But they're not accessible. They're geared mostly towards people getting to and from work. So not as flexible, not maybe as friendly and patient as older people wanted. So that was really pressed upon me. If you want to start with anything, it's transport. So we then started working together with the relevant departments of the city of Oslo and the transport company in creating age-friendly transport, which in Oslo's case is something we call pink buses. And they're door-to-door service. The drivers receive special training so that they have a bit more knowledge, a little bit more patience, so that they can really look after the people using the transport system. You can bring a friend. You can book your tickets using an app, but you can also make a good old-fashioned phone call and book your ticket. And it's a cheap option. It's a concessionary ticket, so it's a very cheap option as well. We started in one district and has just increased it to more and more district, and soon it's citywide in all 15 districts. And it's been a wonderful success story that we've seen that other cities and communities have also implemented, been inspired by this model and implemented more flexible transportation systems in both rural and urban areas. So transport was definitely number one. And interestingly enough, our number two was outdoor spaces, parks and areas. Then came housing, and health came way down on the list.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I know the pink bus model has, you were telling me before this, has kind of gained international attention as well. So what has your experience been of speaking to other countries or other age-friendly champions? What is kind of, yeah, the uptake been of that concept?
Well, I think what most people are wondering about is this private, is this public? And this is very much a public service. So it's part of the overall public transport service. It does require the city of Oslo to subsidize quite heavily. But it's then seen as a social return on investment in a bigger picture. If you can mobilize and make sure that older people have access to different services and activities, you postpone the point of where they need services and institutional places. So I think that's what most other cities and communities are also interested in. How can you afford this? How can you justify the investment in this particular transport system? But it really is, you can have all the fantastic activities you like and good housing, but if you cannot get to where the different activities are or the things that you need to do, it doesn't help, does it? Transport is so important.
Yeah, it's
And it
that
took us a
underlying
while.
foundation.
Yeah, but and I will say it took us a while. It took us 2 years to develop, also because the relevant departments within the city of Oslo were like, well, older people, that's health and care. That's your responsibility. And then you sort of have to pull them back and say, no, this is a common responsibility. It's about the city we want to have, the services that we want to have, and it's about the costs and pressure on health and care services and quality of life for this increasing part of our population.
And what was the experience once the initiative was more established? Is it now something that you have to convince the government is still of value, or has that been a little bit more accepted?
Oh, I'd like to see the courageous politician taking this away now. That I don't think will happen. It's really become a success story. So the prime minister in the recent election said, "I want pink buses all around Norway." So it's become very popular. And of course, not everyone is in a position or have the finances to have exactly the same transport model. But the main issue is this flexibility, and that the drivers have a little bit more patience. Maybe they can help you with the groceries to your door. And the fact that you can also call and book a ticket, because the digital world is not as accessible for everyone as we would like it to be. So I think a lot of the older people also appreciate that option of making a phone call and booking their tickets. So it's gaining interest, and we're really seeing the results of more and more people being able to live at home and stay away and not needing any services.
It's fantastic. Thank you. So, co-creation of age-friendly practices and policies, it's clearly been a core strategy of yours to ensure that environments reflect the wants and needs of older persons. What has your experience been as a facilitator of these types of projects?
Well, I have to say it is one of my favorite parts, and it's probably what I do most on a daily basis, helping the city's communities to have different co-creation activities. So maybe we start developing good surveys that we follow up with physical meetings. We go walkabouts in the cities. We do workshops on different topics. We do interviews. I really like this, and we may have evenings together with developers or banks or different other actors, everything that interacts in your life. It can be your housing, it can be your transport, but it can be your bank, it can be your computer, it can be all these different services. So we do have a lot of focus on co-creation because we need these local insights into creating local solutions. What is correct and right and suitable for one city may not be for the neighboring city, for the simple way of where they are, the composition of the inhabitants, the aging, the young, and the geography and the finances. So that's why we need that local insight and local knowledge to create even better local solutions. So co-creation is so important, and it's such an investment. I do find that sometimes, the planners and the architects and everyone are sort of, ooh, they're dreading it a little bit simply because they're afraid of criticism. Oh, now all these opinions are going to come. So they're slightly afraid of criticism, and they're also slightly afraid of creating expectations which they cannot meet. You invite in to give insight to your ideas, your needs, your wishes, and then they're afraid of not being able to meet them. But I have to say, overall, you always end up with better solutions, better initiatives if you invest in co-creation. And I see a big change in only the 5 last years, I'd say, in terms of the level and engagement of co-creation. I think for the most part, it was a tradition to have like a big town hall meeting, at the beginning of a plan or a beginning of a project, which is all well and fine. But that's a one-way situation for the most part, where a lot of people get information. So you need to do so much more, and you need to try different methods and ways of engaging. And we're really getting along well with that and developing more and more ways of doing it. And they're seeing, the value of it as well. They're learning so much. But it still requires work. It is an investment to do, but best investment you can make.
How do you kind of get individuals to participate in providing their input? I could see how recruitment could be difficult, or recruitment of a diverse population, especially. So you're not just representing the needs of kind of a smaller population.
Yeah, and that's a good question, because that is complicated. You do need to think a bit creatively in terms of how you market. You cannot rely on social media and the websites of your city solely. You need to go out there and do good old-fashioned marketing. You need to maybe use the local paper, the local radio, put up posters in the library or senior centers. You need to go old school, as well as using the social media and the web pages of your city or community. But you need to think a bit wider in your approach in recruiting people. I think what a number of cities and communities have done here is that they've started with a survey, because they see that they then maybe reach 50 to 90, like you reach a wider audience in terms of age. And then they invite, and then you typically get 60, 65 plus. But by doing both the surveys and the physical meetings, you get both the people who are old today, but you also get the people who are going to go old tomorrow. So you can have both. But I think it's very much about also using the councils for older people. So in Norway, you're mandated by law. Every municipality is mandated by law to have a council for older people. So they're an extremely important partner as well. They also help in recruiting both their own members, but also the public at large to join in these meetings. So yes, it is a bit of a challenge to reach out to everyone, because you don't just want the usual suspects. You want those maybe more isolated and the people that don't always get to have their say. And it's a constant challenge.
Thank you. So I have some questions of my own, but I see that the audience as well have some questions. So I'll start off with Shmuel. So Shmuel, as you'll know from our AFE ECHO program, participates quite often in the IFA's activities, and we're so grateful for that. So he asks, how can age-friendly environments support and improve social and economic well-being of older adults from poor and low socioeconomic groups?
Well, I think by getting the local insight to what the needs and wishes are, you really can develop your outdoor areas, your housing options, your activities in a different way to be more inclusive for everyone. And we have a lot of activities that we call low threshold. So not costing anything, being accessible, being something that everyone can do. And it's about, I guess, using your local libraries. They're there already. Can you do more there? Can you create different activities with volunteers that everyone can participate in? Can you engage the cultural institutions? Maybe they can do something more. Maybe we can take part in the general rehearsals for free, like we've done with some concerts, some operas, some ballet performances. So I think it's about engaging and thinking a bit more low threshold, something that everyone can do at low cost, which is definitely possible. But you then need to engage the local inhabitants and, okay, what would you like to happen? We need then, as city administrators or as politicians or bureaucrats, we need to facilitate this exchange and gaining this insight. But definitely, I think we have had a lot of focus on our outdoor spaces and meeting places, that they be accessible for everyone, and that you can use benches, that you not always have to buy something to sit anyway, like in cafes or restaurants, but that we have more seating available that everyone can use without having to pay for something or buy anything. So I think outdoor areas and meeting places and activities, have them be as low threshold as possible.
Thank you. And before I go on to some other questions, just while you're speaking about outdoor meeting spaces, would you be able to tell us a little bit more about the Memory Lane initiative?
Yes. So outdoor spaces and meeting places have really been a focus for me now for the last 2 years. We actually put out a national call to all the different cities and communities in our network if they had any outdoor areas and meeting places where they either want to develop or had developed and wanted to further develop, where they had an age-friendly focus or universal design and co-creation at the core. And we got so many fantastic examples that we have also gathered in a handbook that I've shared with you, and that you're welcome to share with everyone, because it is in English as well. And the most sort of striking things about all these initiatives is that they've come from local citizen engagement. And Memory Lane, like you mentioned, in Oslo, is completely from a citizen's perspective. It was a single individual who saw that we need something in this district. We need a path to walk on that can be accessible for everyone. Had this idea of a memory lane that could be used by both, everyone, but also maybe people with cognitive impairment at some stage. But you needed to think then very carefully about universal design, about signage, accessibility. This individual then reached out to the district, and from then was a fantastic collaboration with the urban planners, with older people, focus groups, with different practitioners within the city to develop Memory Lane, which has benches, activities, good lighting, good signage. They have storyboards telling a bit of the history of the place. They have activities. They have circulation pedals in front of the benches. They have different games. And the placement of this memory lane is there's regular housing, but there's also a nursing home where the cafe is open to everyone. There's a kindergarten close by and different sorts of housing options. So it really is for everyone. But it stems from a single individual who had a great idea. And I love those projects where you really have local engagement and co-production coming into fruition and into practice.
And what a privilege to be able to bring that to life as well. That's fantastic. Thank you. So, Anna Maria, I'm going to invite you to unmute. You have a question about access to virtual programs?
Yes, thank you very much. Well, I think the pandemic taught us a great lesson and left a legacy, and I think is the use of technology. I know that the technology gap is a big issue, but I think there are great organizations, one in Canada, another in the United States, that are doing extraordinary work with seniors virtually. In the particular case in the state, the Senior Planet have activities from 9 o'clock to sometimes 7 o'clock. And it's very inspiring to me to see seniors with the oxygen mask and take active role in the activities. But that it doesn't come that often. And to lead this kind of activities, is important to have leaders or instructors who are caring, compassionate, loving, and empathetic towards the needs. Because I have seen other programs and experienced other programs here in Ottawa, and they open the mic, 9 o'clock they start, 10 finish and close. There is not opportunity to social interaction. And that is very important. To me, kudos to those that lead Senior Planet. The other organization in Canada is Dancing with Parkinson, that since the pandemic, they decide to open, lead, of course, go virtually and open the doors to seniors across the nation. And they are now interacting with schools. So with certain regularity, there are classes with children that take part of the class at 11 o'clock. So it's educating and creating awareness. And I come here because I'm part of the Senior Roundtable here in Ottawa, and we have a budget. And there are some programs, but I think there are individuals, again, they lack of the empathy and the knowledge and understanding of seniors' needs. And sometimes they write the proposal or do things just to do it because it's their job to do something, but without giving thought about the importance of doing an activity that is going to have an impact in reducing seniors' social isolation. And that activity must have a physical, emotionally, or mental impact on the individual. I think that it can be possible. And in these days, we have to address both those who want to go in person, and transportation is a crisis, it's a major challenge. We have in Ottawa Wednesday and Sunday free transportation. It should be 2 days during the week, not on Sundays. And educate people who want to become good service providers via internet, because we can reach populations or individuals that otherwise won't participate, and divide some time, socialization and actual physical or activity, exercises or singing, or there is so much. I don't want to take the time, but more than ever, I am convinced, because over a month, I had the flu for over a month. And I was in a very dark place because of that. And I remember the Senior Planet, and I connect that day exploring to see, and practically they rescue me to say the activity. I didn't have to say what I was experiencing, but I mean, I connected it within 4 minutes. I realized what activity was coming at 5 o'clock and then at 6 o'clock, because I was bounded at home because of the severity of the flu. So we need more of that, but also to educate our seniors, because not all seniors are well-versed in technology, or are seniors who are isolated because of the language barriers. So that is very important. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna Maria. And yeah, maybe Anna Berit, would you be able to speak a little bit more to what the training looks like for the pink bus drivers, perhaps, on kind of developing that empathy and being able to, just really be compassionate with those that they interact with?
Absolutely. And first off, I just want to say digital inclusion is a big challenge here as well. So we work a lot on that. I couldn't agree more with you. With the pink buses, again, we have the co-creation at the core. So in terms of the courses for the drivers, it was very much informed by the needs of older people. They said, we want a little bit more time to get on and off. We'd like some help with our groceries if we can. And we'd like a little bit of patience so that we can actually sit down and strap on the belt, because that was often the problem with other buses, that the bus started, driving before you'd actually sat down. So all the training for the drivers is informed by older people, what, their challenges and what they wanted. And actually, I also then want to mention the transport company, because they were really great. They had developed this fantastic app for booking your pink bus. And they were so pleased. They thought it's universally designed. It's really good. But did anyone use the app? No. They all called. But to their credit, they then became curious. Okay, what can we do? So we had focus groups of older people. And the developers really learned a lot, because there's so much language and expectations of knowledge of digital devices that simply isn't there. So, some of the older people said, what are you talking about scrolling? That doesn't mean anything to me. I read a page until the end, and then I want to go to the next. Like, they got these eye-openers, because the developers are typically then maybe in their late 20s, beginning of 30s. And so I think the key to it is to really involve older people then in, how do we do this? How do we organize your courses or your training? We have a lot of different programs in Norway where students come and interact with older people, teaching them about technology, maybe in exchange for history lessons. And a lot of municipalities and libraries also provide training and courses. So there's no lack of opportunities to learn digital skills. But we also get a lot of sort of kickback from older people saying, we don't want to feel that we need special courses. We need different solutions. We need better solutions, so that this is mainstream, that we can just be included and being able to use this. So it's an interesting time that we're in. I think it's great to provide courses, and we should, to improve digital inclusion. But I also think we, for example, as a center, need to challenge the suppliers and the developers. What are your solutions like? Are they really age-friendly enough? In most cases, they're not. So we need then to supply them with the insight and knowledge of what the needs of older people are.
I love that concept of challenging somebody. That's fantastic. So I see, Eileen, you also have a question about serving the needs of older persons. Would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Thank you very much, Sarah. I think what you're doing is absolutely brilliant. And I focused in on the pink buses, which I understand you highlighted that whenever you went out for surveys of older persons and their needs, transport was at the top. Our experience of older persons here in Ireland, when older persons councils go out, transport. And we have public transport. Now, some initiatives of local transport, which would be designed for the routes that people were saying there was a need. What we're finding them, okay, one of the two of them on the local link has developed, but there's a low number of occupancy of the seats and take up, and others have just dropped. My question is on the pink buses. You started off, from what I can gather, for 5 years on the offer about, you said 2017, and it's a permanent offer now until 2022. and the double decker is very pink, and you say it's a door-to-door service. The economics of that and the subsidies of that and the usage, the occupancy rates of the seats, have you any suggestions on that? Or where was the social commitment to it and the costings? Because we have free transport here for older persons over the age of 65.
Well, it is a service provided by the city of Oslo. They subsidize it quite heavily because older people only pay the concessionary ticket, which is quite low. So at the moment, it is heavily subsidized. Now you sort of all disappeared from me.
We can still see you. Yep,
Oh,
we
okay,
can see and
good.
hear you.
Something happened with my screen, so you're all in pink and upside down. But anyway.
So you have pink buses screens now.
Yeah. So it's still heavily subsidized today so that we make it affordable for all the inhabitants. I think we would like to see more people using them. I think a lot of people think that, well, I don't need that. And so we need to persuade them that, well, this is not, based on you having any sort of functional disability or anything. This is just a service for you to use to be even more flexible. So marketing and reaching out to people with the knowledge that these buses exist and to use them more and more is still a challenge. I know that. We are increasing the uses of the pink buses, but we still have some way to go there. But in terms of the budget, that is almost exclusively paid by the city of Oslo, seeing this as an investment. Don't know if that was exactly your question.
Yeah, and the routes, just one follow-up on the routes. For instance, ours would be on hospital routes and
yeah.
things like that.
Yeah, good question. So we've sort of developed this. In the beginning, it was to special meeting points, such as doctors' offices, hospitals, bigger shopping centers. We tried that sort of focal meeting points. But as more and more districts made use of this and more pink buses came into place, the routes themselves are now very flexible. It really is door to door. So it doesn't matter where you're going, the buses will take you there. So we don't have the focal points anymore. In the city of Trondheim, they only take them to special focal points in the city. But with Oslo, because it's been a success, they have been able to now make it a fully flexible service that can take you from door to door anywhere you'd like.
Regardless of the numbers, it's really like a taxi service.
It is more or less. But you do have to maybe put in a little bit of extra time. You cannot treat it exactly as a timetable that your bus is going to be here at 1:25. You must allow maybe some more minutes on both ends because of the flexibility. But that's something that we then communicate very clearly. If you want to use this for appointments, etc., please make sure you allow a little bit of extra time because maybe they have to pick up someone extra. But that flexibility is in there.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Berit. It's fantastic to see how excited everyone is to learn more about age-friendly environments. So we haven't even mentioned the concept of intergenerational games yet, and I feel like you perhaps have kind of addressed both David Richardson and Dr. Tripati's questions, but if either of you have a follow-up question, please do put it in the chat. Because I want to turn to Stephanie DeShassi's question on the importance of an intergenerational approach to inclusive cities. So Stephanie, I'm not sure if you'd like to unmute and ask your question.
Yes, very happy to do that. So I put my video on. Yes. Hello, everyone, and thank you. And it's really fascinating to hear you talk about this very unique Oslo experience. I'm very interested in the approach to intergenerational connections and what the sweet spot was, the level of interest of older people and younger people that were common, and how that drive change in the way some services were designed in the city, and whether also it was embedded into the policies at the local level, but also possibly the politics at the national level. So maybe it became sort of a campaign drive to really cater to a broader audience at the national level.
Ooh, that's quite a big question. So I think I'll respond with an example that we have implemented both at city level and nationwide in terms of generational contact and activity. So Generation Games was a concept that I discovered when I worked for the city of Oslo, which really is what the name implies, Generation Games. It was started in the Netherlands in 2012 by Robert Nessler, who saw the need for creating spaces, arenas, and activities across generations. Because today, if you don't have a family and kids and grandkids, there are not that many natural arenas and venues where you are together across generation. Kids are with kids, older people are with older people to a large degree. So he created this event, Generation Games, where you come together, you're more generations on a team, you use the public spaces in the city, volunteers, city administrators, and local businesses come together and organize Generation Games. And so I really fell in love with this concept. I did it in Oslo as part of Age Friendly Oslo. But now that I work nationally, I've actually also taken it to a national level. So for the last few years, the Center for an Age Friendly Norway has organized Generation Games across the country. This year, we're doing it with 60 cities. And the government was so thrilled by this concept as one of the ways of creating intergenerational activity and contact that they put it in a national reform. So they want more and more cities and communities to do this because it makes generations come together on this day, but also maybe before and after in different activities. And you invite your local clubs, your local sports teams or centers or different leagues to take part and come with activities. Maybe you have students who study sports science or physical education. They come up with some activities. The whole concept is centered around using the spaces in your city or community, having different volunteers and different people coming together, organizing activities that everyone can take part in. And the team needs to have at least 2 generations, preferably more, but at least 2 generations on each team. And this is something for all settings. It really is, it has been organized in the US, in Canada, in Europe, in Africa, in India. It is, again, one of these low threshold initiatives where you're not supposed to, it's for free, it's for everyone to take part in, and it's very much done by and through volunteers and people coming together and the different local actors bringing maybe their equipment, their games, their time on the day to create some activities. So really, this is one of the ways, and a concrete project, I'd say, in raising awareness across generations, trying also to combat this ageism, you know, these preconceived notions that we might have of each other. So that was one way of doing it. In Oslo, we also tried a little bit in the cultural sector. So we invited older people and young people to some of the major cultural institutions to see what their expectations of accessibility, program, timing, performances, and everything was. And what was so surprising is that they had almost exactly the same responses, which surprised them and us. They wanted the same. They were, you know, concerned with how to get there, price of tickets, accessibility, that the content was diversified and for everyone. So we did try some co-creation there with a Council for Younger People and Council for Older People and across generations for cultural activities. And then Generation Games is also a concrete project in that respect. But I do think we need to work more on the intergenerational aspect, getting it into planning, getting it into more and more activities.
Thank you. And I think it speaks. So for those of you who did not have the pleasure to join Global Café last week, Stephanie was speaking with us about intergenerational activities and how they build solidarity and a sense of safety within a community. So Anne Berit, would you be able to tell us a little bit more about the sorts of activities that occur during intergenerational games?
Well, the sky's the limit, really, because it depends on who says yes to your open invitation to join. But typically, a lot of the sports clubs will say yes. So any sort of sports involving a ball, you know, you can have handball, football, volleyball, basketball, or different sorts of hockey and bandy. But you can also have throwing frisbees or frisbee golf, or you can have ping pong, or you can have jumps or, physical activities, but you can also have activities like chess or quizzes, or it really is, there's no limit. And we see creativity all around, but predominantly physical activities, and then some for the mind as well. The whole point of it being something that everyone can do. You don't have to be super fit or in great physical shape to do this. Everyone can do it. And there's a big aspect also of game and joy. So we found in the last few years where we've had an increasing number of refugees, especially Ukrainian refugees as well, but other groups, that it's such an inclusive event as well, because you don't need the languages. You're intuitively, you understand what this is about, and it's for free, and it's a central location, and it's for everyone to take part. And you don't need language. You see that you're supposed to throw the ball or jump here, or so you don't need that much language. So we also see that it's such an inclusive and diverse event. And really we see that it's for everyone. So so the teams typically will consist of 2 generations, can be more, but this is again open to the local organizers how they do it. And I have to say also as well that we tend to say that all older people love seeing kids or younger people play and be active. You know what? For the most part, I thought it was even more the other way around, that the kids or the young people really loved seeing grandfather or the father being active and competitive. And you just see the joy in us all using our capabilities and all being a child at heart, playing.
Thank you. I love that. Would you be able to just maybe speak to how you encourage those who perhaps are a little bit more tentative about engaging in the games? So I know it can be maybe a little bit of a barrier to see others kind of acting joyful and letting go a little bit. So how does that happen?
So the organizers typically have a lot of volunteers that are meant to sort of make sure that the games go smoothly, that, they help people engaging in the different activities. And so they see that a lot of older people are interested and curious about what's happening, but thinking, oh, I'm not sure I want to actually physically take part. But when they then really engage them, maybe the volunteers themselves say, okay, you and I make up a team, we'll do it together. I mean, the joy and the sense of independence and joy when they actually then do it and go through with it, not only onlookers, but actively taking part, is just priceless. But that is still the challenge to getting the oldest to really take an active part. They're very, they want to come and watch, but when they take part, that's when the real magic happens as well. But there's a question of marketing as well, because again, like we were talking about earlier with the co-production, it's about reaching all these different groups that we then again need to be very clever and outgoing in how we reach all the different groups. Children and young people and adults, we usually reach them by social media, but then we need to reach out to the local papers and radio and posters for the older generation. I'm generalizing now, of course, but it's a wide spectrum of marketing as well, getting the older people to engage even more. But it's improved a lot over the last few years, and we can only get better at it. But it really is a magical event that I would encourage everyone to do.
Thank you very much. And I believe that there may be an age-friendly practice on Age-Friendly World, if I'm not mistaken, on the games.
I don't think so yet.
Not yet. That is the key. Looking forward to seeing one. So we're slowly approaching the end of today's session. But for the past 2 years, you have supported the IFA and WHO's Age-Friendly Environments ECHO program. For those who are unaware, this is a 5-session program where we walk through all the kind of components that are required to help support perhaps an age-friendly initiative within a city. If anyone is feeling inspired by our conversation today and wanting their community to become more age-friendly, what advice would you give them?
Well, I think age-friendly is like the internet. It's come to stay. So I think some of the best ways of doing this is looking at the age-friendly world of the WHO. I think, look at the different tools, the different practices, the different ways of working, and reach out to us mentors. We are all very open to being contacted and helping you work at your level or your local community and becoming more age-friendly. But I think starting at the age-friendly world is a good start, because you learn about, okay, these are the different domains. This is what it can look like in practice. This is who's already involved and working on it. And then if you want to take it further in your local setting, well, contact us. And we're more than happy to help you going through the different stages and helping you with different tools.
Thank you. And Valerie, I see you have a question specifically about doing a walkability assessment. Would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Thanks. I'm with a small community, Aurelia, in Canada, and I'm co-chair of the Age Friendly Advocacy Committee. And we had great success by using a tool that we found to assess our transit, and then presented it to the Transportation Committee, and had the fares for older adults reduced, and some improvements in the public transportation system. But we have a big problem with our sidewalks and walkability in the communities. So I'm organizing some older adults to do walkabouts, but I'm looking for a simple tool, and I'd like to do one that's standardized or generalizable so that I can share it with other age-friendly communities and we can do something consistent. Do you know of is there one on the World Health Organization site? I couldn't find one.
We have some, but they're in Norwegian, so they won't help you very much. But if I'm not mistaken, I think Age Friendly Belfast has one. And, you know, that would be in English as well. And that's a great walkability tool. So make use of that. And I would also encourage, certainly that's what we did here. We did one during the day and one during the evening.
Oh,
then the
good thinking. Thank you.
Yeah, that was very useful. And we also did one in winter and one in spring, summer, because certainly the way it looks here, the situation is very different in winter time with all the snow and the ice, and predictability and safety is a whole different issue.
Yeah,
so
same
just
here.
make sure you do it at different, I would assume so, yes.
Yeah.
But I think Age Friendly Ireland and certainly Belfast and possibly also Dublin would have walkability toolkits that you can make use of.
Thank you so much. This has been really wonderful. I'm going to research those generational games as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie, for contributing and sharing some of those challenges that you're having as well. I'd also like to make note that there will be 2 editions of the age-friendly ECHO program being held in 2024. So we have the inaugural French edition beginning on the 27th of March for all of those interested. And I'll ask Berenice to put the registration link in the chat. And for those interested in participating in an English edition, stay tuned, as this will be held in autumn 2024. And Berit has been so foundational for the first 2 editions of the ECHO program, and it really has been a fantastic experience. So do join if you have the opportunity. So like I said, we are slowly approaching the end of today's session. I see, Cynthia, you have a question about age-friendly becoming synonymous with older age. Would you be able to unmute and ask your question perhaps and round off the session?
Yes, and I hope you noticed my surname, Stuen.
That sounded Norwegian, or at least Scandinavian.
Oh, absolutely. Anyway, as you were talking, it struck me when you said that in your focus groups and meetings, etc., people wanted, what they were wanting is age integration. And it just struck me that in many instances, I think the perception of age-friendly, we mean it across all ages, because as I said, a mother with a stroller needs the curb cuts, or a father with a stroller needs the curb cuts, or a disabled person needs them of any age. But age-friendly has, it struck me, become more synonymous with older age-friendly. And I really wonder if and I know for me it's true, I want age integrated. I want it across the ages. And I'm not a Pollyanna to not understand that there are older persons like myself who have many other disabling conditions or chronic conditions where the door-to-door, and that's fine. But what we're really, the best is if it were all age integrated and accommodated everyone. And I just would like your reflections or thoughts about that.
Such a good question, and I couldn't agree more with you. So I think we need to look back a little bit on how and why the WHO started the initiative. They saw these two global trends, you know, the aging populations and the urbanization. So that's why they started this, to really try and have an approach that could meet the challenges, but also release the opportunities within this. So that's how it started. And I think the focus very much is on mitigating, you know, the opportunities and challenges within an aging population, but also making sure that the fantastic resources that older people are can, you know, blossom and be made use of in the society. But I get that question a lot in my setting. Well, you know, is this just for older people or is it good for everyone? Well, I think we cannot escape the fact that we are getting a lot of, you know, we are an aging population.
Right.
So we need to take some steps. We need to change our outlook somewhat so that we are more inclusive and more accessible. So it's about our outdoor areas, it's about our housing, it's about our transport, it's about our activities. They all need to become more accessible and more inclusive. But that will benefit everyone. That's the whole clue. That will benefit the mother or the father with the stroller, or the one with the walker or the wheelchair. But I think we also then not forgetting that we are getting so many more older people in all around the world. Really, we are, the aging population is going to be such a strong part of our society and such a dominant part that we do need to make some steps. But that can be met by including older people in the decision making, in the development. But if we never lose sight of the accessibility and inclusion, then it's good for everyone. It's that age inclusive perspective and development that you're looking for. But I always say that age friendly is good for all ages. It's inclusive of all ages. It's about that creating societies, outdoor spaces, housing and transport that's accessible to everyone. So absolutely. And I'm hoping, that would be my vision, that we get to a stage where it is mainstreamed, that it is age inclusive all around. So I think age friendly is a step towards that. Why don't we look at it that way? That can be a step towards the full age inclusion and this being mainstream for everyone.
I love that framing. And thank you, Cynthia, for kind of making sure that we brought up that idea of age inclusivity as well. So I'm going to introduce next week's topic. So, and Berit, I'll ask you to maybe reflect on your key takeaways from today's discussion while I do so. So next week, we will be joined by Ms. Jo Loren on the topic of changing perspectives, age without limits. So please do join us to listen to what will be another great discussion moderated by my colleague, Ms. Mitali Mistry. So Anne Berit, back to you. In a few kind of key sentences, what would be your takeaways of today's session to share with all of us?
Well, in many ways, I think we had the perfect ending with that last question, because that is really where we're going. I think age friendly remains the best and most sustainable and inclusive way to aging. It helps us embrace aging and look forward to getting older. And that's where we want to go, to a stage where we can all look forward to getting older. I think age-friendly approach really helps us doing that, but it needs to be mainstream, not something we're doing extra.
Thank you. Yes, the mainstreaming concept is so critical. And I think those who work within the age-friendly sector are so fortunate to work with so many other like-minded individuals. It really is a very collaborative group to be able to work with. So before we sign off, I would again like to thank everyone for joining us today, and with a special and grateful thank you to you, Anna Berit. It was so lovely to hear all about your work and to learn more and be encouraged to continue on with this mainstreaming of age-friendly. I would also like to thank my colleagues at the International Federation on Aging, in particular, Berenice Enea and Roxana Badier, who have been so foundational for ensuring that this runs smoothly. So thank you as well to you all. I hope to see you all next Friday and wishing everyone a great weekend.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Lovely to see you all.